If you're standing up, you should probably sit down. I don't know if you know, but Beautifly and Dustox are terrible Pokemon. When I first played Pokemon Emerald, I was so excited to see Beautifly. This is like a new, fresh version of Butterfree. It's like I get to do the same familiar thing over and over again with just a slightly different coat of paint on top. It's very similar to how I like to do these solo challenges over and over again. This is how I find joy, don't judge me. Anyway, I was very disappointed to find out that Beautifly is actually trash when I tried to use it. Unlike Butterfree, it felt terrible at the early stages of the game. I thought maybe Dustox would be better. After all, it's kind of like a unique version of Venomoth. And as a kid, I did really like its design. Turns out it learns Confusion in the early portions of the game, but it also is absolutely trash. So why is that the case? Well, number one, Beautifly is a bug flying type, which is not good defensively against a rock type gym leader at the beginning of the game. These Pokemon both have a medium fast growth rate, which means they level up fairly slowly in the earliest stages of the game, which is unfortunate. For base stats, Beautifly has 60 HP, 65 speed, 70 attack, 90 special attack, and 50 defense and special defense. I've gone with a modest nature since I think I'm going to be using special attacks for the majority of this run with Beautifly, although more on that later. For an ability, Beautifly has Swarm, increasing the damage of bug-type moves once it falls below 1/3 health. This is unfortunate because it only learns one bug-type move. It starts with Just Absorb, learns Absorb again at level 10, then Gust at 13, which is a physical move, Stun Spore at 17, Morning Sun at 20, Mega Drain at 24, Whirlwind at 27, Attract at 31, which is very unique and cool to get this through level up, Silver Wind, its only bug move, at level 34, and then Giga Drain at level 38. Like Butterfree, it gets access to Psychic through TM, as well as Giga Drain and Solar Beam, but that's really it. Like, we get Aerial Ace and Shadow Ball, but they're physical moves. I don't think I'm going to want to use Return for the same reason. I've given myself Hidden Power Fire just so I have a special move to go up against Steven Stone with. Hopefully already you're getting a sense that things are going to be rough for Beautifly. But if you're like me, you've probably looked at Absorb and said, well, you have 4 times damage against Roxanne and you're going to gain back health every time you attack. That should make Beautifly pretty good in this stage of the game. And the answer is no. It takes 4 times damage from rock moves. Roxanne is still absolutely awful. Okay, so does Absorb one-shot the Geodudes when I'm level 15? The answer is yes with a critical hit. What about the second Geodude at level 16? The answer is also yes. However, then the problem is that the Nosepass just sees that it does way too much damage with Rock Tomb, and I only do roughly 1/5 with Absorb against it. With a single hit from its Rock-type move, it one-shots Beautifly, and it didn't even get a chance to lower my speed enough that it would use its normal moves. It's just going to be spamming Rock Tomb. Here's the nice thing though about having Beautifly with Absorb. I can Blackout Train to Roxanne, defeating both of the Geodudes, gaining experience, and then lose to the Nosepass over and over again. This is a far more efficient way of training than other bug flying types in the early game. I'm thinking of you, Ninjask. Training to level 20 with an erratic growth rate Pokemon was such a slog. I'm glad that I don't have to do that here. The question is though, how many times do I need to Blackout to Roxanne? And I thought it was maybe going to be until level 18. No, it continues going long beyond that. I get to level 20, and the Nosepass is still just completely destroying Beautifly. I have Morning Sun now, I have Stun Spore, I can use these to mess it up a little bit, but it still just keeps beating me. I lost 10 times, lost 11 times, lost 12 times. Now Beautifly is level 21. I think I'm actually going to win here because of luck from Stun Spore or critical hits before I get to a level where this would be consistent. And yeah, that's exactly what happens. I Stun Spore the Nosepass, it's not able to attack. It hits with one Rock Tomb, but it doesn't do enough damage. I'm still faster, and Absorb eventually knocks it out. It took Beautifly 19 minutes and 12 seconds to beat Roxanne. Now, what about Dustox? It is not a bug flying type, so it should have a better Roxanne split, but that's the only thing that it's going to be better at. This Pokemon is a disaster in terms of design. For base stats, it has 60 HP, 65 speed, 50 attack and special attack, 70 defense, and 90 special defense. To summarize, this is an early game bug poison type with bad attacking stats and good defensive stats. Imagine if that's how Game Freak had designed Beedrill. I am so glad that they didn't do that to it. Okay, let's think about Dustox's ability. You would think that Shield Dust is better than Swarm. Beautifly is not going to be using bug type moves because its physical attack is lower than its special attack. Shield Dust makes Pokemon unaffected by secondary effects of moves, so Fake Out can't flinch and Rock Tomb can't lower speed. Hopefully you're seeing where this is gonna go. Before that, let's talk about movepool. It's essentially the same as Beautifly's with some changes. Confusion at level 1 and 10, Moonlight instead of Morning Sun, Psybeam instead of Mega Drain, Light Screen instead of Attract, and Toxic instead of Giga Drain. Just in case you want to stall out the enemy Pokemon with Dustox. Through TM and HM, it gets an additional move, Sludge Bomb, so it has the same type attack bonus Poison type move. By the way, outside of Toxic, this is the only other Poison type move it gets. You would not know that this is a Poison type Pokemon if you showed someone just its move pool. I've gone for a Rash Nature here, increasing special attack and lowering special defense. And this is going to help me with damage against Roxanne, but her team is still brutal. I have to 3-shot the Geodudes at level 15. This is what happens when I don't even have super effective damage here against Roxanne. I should also note that the Nose Pass is just going to spam Rock Tomb. It is never going to be able to lower my speed, and it's always going to try to speed control me. This is the downside of Shield Dust. I can't believe that Dustox has to deal with this. It is truly ironic that this defensive Pokemon's defensive ability is working against it defensively. If I could just remove Shield Dust as an ability, I would have a better time here with Dustox. And I could do that, but of course it would be cheating. So instead I have to black out here over and over again. One of the disadvantages of this is that it takes longer for every blackout than it did with Beautifly, because we have more defense. So it takes longer for the Nose Pass to knock us out, but we're not doing enough damage to ever get close. Also, we take longer to knock out each individual Geodude along the way. Was the idea here to design a Pokemon that was so fundamentally bad against Roxanne that players would immediately boxing it after figuring out how evolution worked with its line? I think that's what Game Freak was going for with both of these Pokemon. They are not meant to be used for Roxanne or after Roxanne. With other species like Ninjask, they at least give it double team to fight rock types with in the early game, but not for these two. I think it's appropriate that I am playing these Pokemon on Halloween week, because these runs are truly horrifying. Now, how do I win with Dustox? Well, I have 12 blackouts, just like I did with Beautifly, and then Dustox crits the Nose Pass while it misses constantly with Rock Tomb. And I have to burn through 2 potions here as well as an Oranberry, and to win, Dustox needs 2 critical hits. I actually pulled it off. I tank 1 more Rock Tomb because of my higher defenses, survive on 10 hit points, and finish her last Pokemon with Confusion. Despite everything working against it, Dustox gets a split here of 16 minutes and 50 seconds, so it was still faster than Beautifly, but I don't think that's gonna last for long. In today's playthrough, the rival is going to have Torchic. Yes, I have super effective damage in the form of Gust. No, I don't think it's gonna matter. I think that these Pokemon actually have an okay matchup against any of the rivals' Pokemon, and I say okay as in the type matchup. I still think they might struggle since their stats are so bad. Luckily for these bugs, the rival isn't really that good in Pokemon Emerald. With access to Confusion, I decided to do optional training inside of Brawly's gym. By the way, you can get Sludge Bomb on Dewford Island, but I can't do that now. You need to defeat Norman before it becomes available. Although that makes me think, why didn't they just let you get Sludge Bomb now? It would at least make Dustox a little bit more usable in this section of the game. And there aren't a lot of other overpowered Pokemon that could have Sludge Bomb by this point in the run, so gating it off from the player doesn't really change that much. The only reason to do this would be nerfing species like Zubat, Oddish, and Dustox. Luckily, Brawly's up next, and I don't expect to have problems here. I've got Moonlight to recover health, I have Confusion for super effective damage, and I can even use Gust if I run low on PP or if the Meditite sets up with Light Screen. I'm actually fairly surprised at just how easy this battle was. I 2-shot all of his Pokemon, and the Makuhita just got healed a bunch before it finally went down. I didn't even take damage or need to use Moonlight a single time. I stopped by the Trick House, pick up the rare candy because I'm going to be getting every single one of these items throughout these 2 runs. These bugs definitely need them. Time for the rival again, who I said was going to be easy. Maybe I was wrong. Now Dustox has Psybeam since I've done extensive training in this section of the game, but I still can't one-shot the Wingull. I get confused, hit myself. Wingull then uses Growl, lowering my physical attack. Not the worst thing in the world. Dustox continues hitting itself. Wingull uses super effective wing attack. Dustox finally knocks it out with Psybeam. Combuskin comes in. Dustox hits itself. Ember gets a critical hit. While Dustox can survive the hit, the Combuskin also survives Psybeam and uses Ember again. Yeah, I lost to the rival. If I don't get so unlucky with Confusion though, this fight's so much easier. Also, the Combuskin can just go for focus energy right away, and if it does this, then I 2-shot. Or in this case, Dustox gets lucky and Combusken knocks itself out in confusion. Now I want to quickly do an overview of Watson for people who are unfamiliar with Emerald version. Typically, Pokemon want to fight him somewhere in the level 25 to 30 range because grinding beyond that tends to be quite suboptimal. But for first stage Pokemon and Pokemon that are not very good, typically level 30 to 33 is the sweet spot. So I trained extensively with Dustox and took it up to level 32 before trying Watson for the first time. Voltorb is first. Psybeam does half to it. I'm lucky that it didn't go for self-destruct and do a lot of damage. I also have to two-shot the weak Electrike, and this makes me very scared. How much damage do we have against Magneton? That looks like a 7th? It's probably going to take 7 turns to knock out, maybe 6 if I'm lucky, and Watson has super potions. Unless I can stall here with Moonlight even though I'm paralyzed, this is not going to work. I tried going for this, and the fight really slows down. I'm able to stall fairly effectively, but even if I had a move like Toxic, I wouldn't be able to use it here. Also, there is even more anti-synergy with Dustox, I can't believe it. Moonlight as a stalling move is terrible because it only has 5 PP. So I can't even last long enough to have decent health against the Manectric. I have only 2 hit points left over, well 5 once I level up, and so Watson's Ace takes the win for him. We're gonna have to go above level 33. To level 34 to get access to Silverwind, which I teach in the place of Protect. Now, I'm gonna have to roll the dice for Omni Boosts against Watson, hopefully increasing all of my stats. I should also mention that Silverwind does more damage than Psybeam, so I'm able to one-shot the Voltorb as well as the Electrike now, and that does improve things for Dustox. I get an Omni Boost when I knock out his second Pokemon right before the Magneton, which is perfect. Silverwind continues to be my best available move here, and now I'm able to 3-shot his Steel type. At least I thought I was going to, but that it survives on a small amount of health and I run out of Silverwind PP. Okay, he's going to use a Super Potion, so I should go for Psybeam now. Dustox is fully paralyzed. I get confused by Supersonic. Luckily, I use Psybeam and get a critical hit. Magneton's not doing very much with Shockwave, but Dustox is damaging itself, and Magneton can bypass my beneficial stat changes by using Sonic Boom. Everyone, Dustox is such a disaster. Okay, back to the fight. I have to stall here with Moonlight and use Psybeam for damage. It takes forever, especially because of paralysis, but eventually I scrape through with a victory against Watson. Dustox gets a third gym split of 42 minutes and 32 seconds. Okay, maybe there's a brief reprieve with Beautifly. Is it going to be possible to have a better Watson split? No, it's not. We're a flying type. He's going to be super effective against Beautifly. So while Dustox was pretty bad here, I anticipate that Beautifly is going to be even worse. Luckily, Brawly is extremely easy. I level up to 24 and teach Mega Drain in the place of Absorb. I trained a lot for Rival 2 going into this fight at level 27. Even 28 after I knock out the Wingull. I was a bit scared of the Combusken, but it just goes for focus energy and I win against the rival on my first attempt. Now, prior to Watson, I trained more with Beautifly, and you might think this is because of my experience with Dustox, but it's not. I played the Beautifly playthrough one day before Dustox because I thought that Dustox was going to be the underdog for this challenge. At level 34 against Watson, I'm going for Silverwind Omni Boosts. I can also one-shot the Voltorb as well as the Electrike because Beautifly, even with the nature that lowers its attack, still has a higher attack stat than Dustox does here. I should also mention that because of typing, for whatever reason, Watson is holding back his Magneton, sending in his Manectric third. I think this is an advantage. It gives me more time to get Omni Boosts before I move on to his final Steel type, which is typically his most difficult Pokemon. In this case though, I get no Omni Boosts with Silverwind, so I do end up losing. But in the second fight, I increase all of my stats on the Manectric, and then I can use Mega Drain to gain back health as I'm attacking. This is a huge advantage for Beautifly. I can also use Morning Sun if I need to gain back a lot of health all at once, and then Silverwind for consistent damage as well as more Omni Boosts. I don't get one, but I don't even need it. Mega Drain is enough, and I beat Watson on my second attempt. Beautifly gets a Watson split of 39 minutes and 41 seconds, so despite its type disadvantage here, it is still faster than Dustox. Okay, I've got a little bit of downtime here while I go and pick up the secret power TM, I want to mention why I have nicknamed Beautifly Dynex. I used to work at Best Buy around 10 years ago now, and one of the brands that we would sell there was called Dynex. It was the knockoff brand that was a little bit cheaper for the customers and earned the store way more money. And of course, the products were absolutely awful. After looping around through Meteor Falls, I head back to the game corner and purchase myself 3,500 coins. I buy the TM for Psychic and teach it to Beautifly in the place of Gust. A powerful special move is great right now, but it's not particularly useful against Maxie's lead Mighty Yenna. But I have super effective Silverwind. I was hoping for an Omni Boost to counter out Intimidate's debuff, but instead I don't get one. I have my accuracy lowered. Maxie uses a super potion, and I'm not able to knock out his Mighty Yenna, having to attack 2 more times before I get it. Still no Omni Boost, and I no longer have any uses of Silverwind. He sends in Camrupt next, and here's the thing. It doesn't know that I'm a flying type, I guess, because it just goes for Magnitude, which does nothing, and because of that I'm able to knock it out with Psychic essentially for free, and of course Zubat's easy. Now let's go up against Flannery. I am really worried about this one with both of these weak bugs. I think there's the potential to get completely walled here. She leads with Nummel, and it might be possible to get an Omni Boost here using Silverwind, but I wanted to avoid the Nummel setting up with Sunny Day and then going for Overheat, so I just went for Psychic right away and one-shot. Slugma's next, and I regretted my choice because I'm going to have to two-shot the Camrupt and the Torkoal, so I decided to go for Silverwind here, hopefully giving myself a boost. No, I don't get one. It's unfortunate. I move on to Camrupt. The sun is now out. Psychic can't one-shot. Even though I drop Special Defense, Beautifly still gets one-shot by Overheat, so I'm going to go back to the PC, deposit all of my HM users, and then black out to Flannery. This is acceptable because 3 of her 4 Pokemon give special attack EVs, which are going to work towards more damage for Beautifly in the late game. Plus there's upside here. By repeating this fight over and over again, I'm constantly rolling the dice for the Camrupt or the Torkoal to miss with Overheat. If both of them do, or if Beautifly gets one critical hit along the way, I will be able to win with luck at a low level. Well, a relatively low level. 37 or 38 is still pretty high for Flannery. After just one blackout, I'm able to learn Giga Drain, which I put in the place of Mega Drain for increased damage. This time around, the sun isn't out, and because of that, Camrupt isn't seeing the one-shot with Overheat. Because of this, it goes for its next best attacking move, which is Tackle, doing almost no damage. But the Torkoal does see the one-shot, so it goes for Overheat, and that's it. It appeared right now, in order to win, I need the Camrupt to go for Tackle or miss an Overheat, and then for the Torkoal to miss its Overheat. Since her ace still is one-shotting even without the sun. I'm not worried about losing over and over here, especially since I'm knocking out the Camrupt sometimes now. Gaining all of these special attack EVs is definitely worth it. One small change I could make for this kind of blackout training is holding the Macho Brace during it, because I will still be faster than all of Flannery's Pokemon since they're incredibly slow. I get to level 40 over the next damage rounding threshold. Camrupt is still going for Overheat, but it misses. Then, on the Torkoal, I get a critical hit and I one-shot. So Beautifly needed luck on her 2 final Pokemon, even when it was very over-leveled. With Dustox, for whatever reason, I didn't have enough money to buy Psychic right away at the same time, so I had to beat Maxie with only Psybeam. It ended up being okay. His Camrupt is not that good. Its best Fire-type move is Ember, and while it does have Magnitude, which can hit Dustox, I also got an Omni Boost during this battle, making things easier. After that, I backtracked to the other side of Rust Turf Tunnel, yoinked myself some nuggets with Thief, and sold them to get Psychic. With Dustox against Flannery, I was a little bit more focused on getting Omni Boosts with Silverwind since my damage is worse than Beautifly. I got one early on with the Nummel, and I thought that this was going to be what Dustox needed to win. However, then Torkoal came out before the Camrupt, which is a different order to the fight than Beautifly had to deal with, and the damage that I took from Nummel was too much. Overheat can still one-shot. That was when it was sun boosted, by the way. I can stall this out instead on the Slugma using Moonlight. Well, if I don't just one-shot the Slugma with Psychic. I don't know why I did this in the second fight. I don't even have an Omni Boost. I have to 3-shot the Torkoal, and it can one-hit with Overheat even when the sun isn't out. One thing I should mention about the move Moonlight is that there is no day and night cycle in Generation 3. Because of that, this move needs another way to determine how much it heals, and it uses weather to do this. So when there's sun on the field, Moonlight will heal 2/3 of the user's total HP. It's at least nice that when Flannery sets up, I at least get something out of it. Against Against the Slugma, I can spam Moonlight waiting for the sun to go away, healing in the process, and then I can knock out her second Pokemon so that there's no sun for the Torkoal. In this fight I have an Omni Boost, so Torkoal's damage is going to be reduced, and because of that Dustox is able to survive Overheat. This lets Dustox use 2 Psychics, and that's enough to knock out Flannery's ace, but I still have to deal with the Camerupt. It's going to finish Dustox with its Overheat, so the only way to win here is either a critical hit or a miss, just like I got with Beautifly. And the Camerupt does miss its Overheat, so Dustox pulls through with a luckier Flannery. Looking at the splits, it unfortunately hasn't been able to win itself back the lead. It's 1 minute and 13 seconds slower than Beautifly right now. I was hoping that Norman might go okay for Dustox since I have Psychic, but I'm having to 3-shot the Vigoroth and I'm taking way too much damage from Facade. Plus, I'm not able to do half to Linoon, so it can set up with Belly Drum, then Norman heals with a Hyper Potion, and I get completely destroyed. What I need is a Silver Wind boost. If I don't get it, I'm going to lose. Finally, in my third fight, I get the Omni Boost on the Spinda at the beginning of the battle, and from here, everything gets easier. I can 2-shot the Vigoroth, the Linoon, preventing the Belly Drum, and then move on to Slacking. Now, as long as it doesn't knock out Dustox, I should be able to go for Moonlight on turns that I need to heal, and Slacking is only attacking 1 out of 2 turns. It does go for Yawn, which is a little bit unfortunate, so I heal with Moonlight, anticipating that the fight's going to take a little bit longer. However, I wake up fairly quickly, and I knock Slacking out. I surf to Dewford Island next to pick up the Sludge Bomb TM in the Poke Fan Club. This is going to be a great same type attack bonus move for Dustox. However, just before I taught it, I decided against it, instead prioritizing Hidden Power Fire in the place of Thief. Super effective damage for Winona's Skarmory is probably going to be more important than Sludge Bomb in the next small section of the game. The rival before Fort Tree City is really easy for Dustox to manage, and I journey all the way to Lily Cove City fighting him again to get access to the department store. He's also simple here. For vitamins, I bought Dustox 2 calcium to improve its special attack. And I considered teaching Substitute right now, but I think holding on to Moonlight might be a little bit better. It's at least slightly more stylish, because Substitute is so generic in Generation 3. I decided to go for the fun play, so let's see if Moonlight can do a decent job throughout the mid-game. Okay, time for Winona. Swablu is first. Against it, I go for Psychic, and I have to 2-shot, which does expose me to the risk of Perish Song. But I'm able to knock it out and move on to the Tropius. Here, I go for Silverwind to hopefully get an Omni Boost, but I don't, and I end up finishing it with higher damage from Hidden Power Fire on the next turn. Pelipper is annoying as always, going for Protect. Eventually, I hit it with 2 Psychics, and it goes down. Altaria comes in before Skarmory. I have to use Psychic here, it's my best move, and it's doing roughly 1/4, plus Altaria sets up with Dragon Dance and then hits Aerial Ace, which does 1/3. Okay, this is terrible. Also, the Oranberry that I always make fun of, because she's one of the later gym leaders that has this item, it almost suggests to me that maybe Winona was supposed to be an earlier gym leader in the game and then they moved her later, but they just didn't change her held item. Anyways, this is just enough healing to prevent the Altaria from going down from my 3rd hit with Psychic, and because of that, she heals with a Hyper Potion and I lose. Okay, what's the solution? The solution is an Omni Boost. You understand how Dustox needs to be played by now. I just have to find a Pokemon that is weak enough to set up against and then pray that I get the 10% secondary effect. Once I do, then I can crush my way through teams that are even theoretically good against Dustox. And with a single Omni Boost, I'm able to beat Winona on my 2nd attempt. In Mount Pyre, I pick up the Shadow Ball TM. I think this will be useful for Dustox, especially against Tate and Liza, who are coming up just around the corner. But first, I have to beat Maxie. Sometimes this battle is difficult if you don't have Substitute, because you get your speed lowered and you also get hit by Swagger. In this case, it doesn't actually go that bad. I don't even get an Omni Boost. Camerupt is just not doing enough damage with its hits, and Maxie doesn't choose to heal it, so I knock it out when he should have gone for a Super Potion. Then, I was a tiny bit worried about the Crobat. However, it doesn't do enough damage and I have a berry to heal health. Because of this, Dustox is able to survive and then eventually clean up the Mightyena. The question now is, should I use rare candies prior to Tate and Liza? I have Shadow Ball, Psychic, Silverwind, and Moonlight, which is a pretty good moveset against them, but I am a poison type, so I'm going to be taking super effective damage from their Psychic moves. And Earthquake from Claydol is going to deal neutral damage every turn. Why doesn't Dustox have Levitate? It has wings and it looks like it's flying around. Is it actually supposed to crawl around ground on the ground, or maybe it just lands every time a Pokemon uses a ground type move. I don't know, this doesn't make sense. I would really prefer to have Levitate over Shield Dust. I decided to train until level 52 and then try them without rare candies, and then I accidentally ran into the guy with Wobbuffet, and my Shadow Ball is unable to one-shot. Wobbuffet uses counter. Remember, Shadow Ball is a physical move in Generation 3, so it knocks me out. Not great. Luckily, I only have one HM user to faint if I want to black out here, and I do because I didn't save before this. This was an unintentional battle. What I need to do now though is spam out all of Abra's teleport, and then eventually I need to pray that Wobbuffet has enough PP left over on counter that it can go for this move when I'm using Struggle and then reflect damage back at Abra. Or Abra has to do so little damage that the Wobbuffet is going to survive all of my hits with Struggle and I'll knock myself out. Luckily, it does end up working and I don't have to reset to before Maxi. I come back, take my revenge, and now I'm ready to take on Tate and Liza. Shadow Ball is not able to one-shot the Xatu on turn 1, which is really not a good sign for this fight. I use Silver Wind on the next turn to knock out the Xatu because its health was low enough. Unfortunately, I don't get a boost. I take more damage from Earthquake, now it's roughly half after 2 turns, and I'm not able to one-shot the Lunatone with Silver Wind, even though it does more damage when compared with Shadow Ball. In summary, the damage ranges here are just not good enough for me. I'm going to lose if I keep taking damage from Earthquake every turn. And a Lunatone with a super effective Psychic can speed up the process. I go back out, train a little bit more. By the way, this fight got really close. I ran out of PP and had to use Struggle here, knocking out both the Shiftry and the Nose Pass. I even got paralyzed on the Nose Pass, but I'm not going to show it to you. I did barely pull through with a win. The only reason I wanted to bring this footage up is just so you can see that I leveled up to 54, and then I started using rare candies for Tate and Liza. With 6, I am level 60 and hoping for a 2-shot with Silver Wind against Xatu. I am able to pull this off, which means I have 2 chances for Omni Boosts here, but I wasn't entirely sure about the damage range. Maybe if I roll bad damage and I rolled good damage on the previous turn, I'm not going to knock it out. So I went for Shadow Ball on turn 2 to secure the knockout. Lunatone is next. I go for Silver Wind. Still not enough to one-shot. I take more damage from Earthquake as well as Psychic, and I lose again. But this time, I was able to knock out the Lunatone. I came back over the next damage rounding threshold at level 63, so this is 9 rare candies here. I'm able to one-shot the Xatu using Shadow Ball now, but I just barely can't on the Lunatone with Silver Wind. But it eats its Citrus Berry, giving me another chance for an Omni Boost. I once again don't get it, and then I have to 2-shot the Soul Rock using Shadow Ball. But I'm not taking that much damage from Claydol's Earthquakes, and the Soul Rock did set up Sunny Day. I was hoping this was going to give me a massive heal with Moonlight, but no, I take too much damage from Claydol and end up fainting. So I used 11 rare candies and went to level 65 to try again. Now I have the one-shot with Silver Wind on the Lunatone, and because of it, the whole fight is so much easier. Silver Wind also knocks out the Soul Rock in a single turn, and that leaves only the Claydol, which I can 2-shot using Shadow Ball. If I use it twice, is it called Shadow Balls? And speaking of balls, I ended up dropping mine against Norman. I guess I'm just like the juggler in Koga's gym. I should be using Morning Sun against the Slacking, but I'm not, and as a result I lose. Beautifly is so much better here when compared with Dustox because I'm able to 2-shot all of his Pokemon even without an Omni Boost. There's no way to just instantly lose to the Linoon getting set up with Belly Drum and then him healing with a Hyper Potion. As long as I survive against the Slacking and can consistently attack, I will defeat it. There's one other problem here, and it's not my balls. In this case, it's my PP. It's getting pretty low. I really might not be able to go the distance. Beautifly has 4 uses of Psychic and Giga Drain, and it can't use Silver Wind anymore. In Generation 1, the chance to drop Special Defense with Psychic is 33%, but in Generation 3, it's only 10%. Because of this, I haven't been able to increase my damage on any turn, and I didn't get an Omni Boost either, despite really trying at the beginning of the fight. However, Norman did use one of his Hyper Potions initially on the Spinda, and because of that, he doesn't have one left over for the Slacking, so I am able to knock it out with my next Psychic. The rival is easy. I take on Winona before going to Lily Cove City. She is not easy unless I get an Omni Boost. I don't in the first fight, so I lose, and in the second fight, I do get one, and as a result, I win. Let's take a moment and do a little bit of theory crafting in relation to these 2 Pokemon's use of Silver Wind. Which one of them should benefit more from its usage? For the first time in this video, I think that the winner here is Dustox. Beautifly's typing is worse defensively effectively, especially against Steven Stone, and Dustox's higher defensive stats means it can last longer while it tries to search for its Omni Boost, whereas Beautifly with lower defensive stats won't have as much time. However, there still might be a problem for Dustox, and that's the fact that even though it could get Omni Boosts, it might need more of them, and if 2 Omni Boosts are required, it basically just makes more sense to train up, because sometimes you'll get like 5 Omni Boosts in one battle and it'll feel ridiculous, and then you'll fight for like 30 resets and you'll just only get 1 Omni Boost over and over and over again, and never have the damage range you need. I think that Dustox could be in that situation because of its lower offensive stats, but the only way to find out is to continue watching these playthroughs. In the department store, I buy calcium for Beautifly, increasing its special attack, but just like Dustox, I'm not going to teach Substitute right now. And I instantly end up regretting this. Not having Substitute against Maxi is a terrible scenario for Beautifly because of its typing. The Camrupt has Rock Slide with an effective power of 300, and it does so much damage when it attacks. Plus, even without Scary Face, I am slower than the Crobat, and it has super effective damage with both Wing Attack and Air Cutter. I think the best thing to do here would be to backtrack out of the cave and get Substitute if Beautifly didn't have access to Silverwind. Since it's super effective against the Mightyena, I can just wait until I get an Omni Boost, and then I should be able to beat all of his other Pokemon. I am sad to report that I lost 2, 3, 4, 5 times before I finally got the Omni Boost that I needed in order to beat Maxi. With it, Psychic is able to one-shot the Crobat, I can use Giga Drain to two-shot the Camrupt, gaining back health on my way, and then I can finish off his Mightyena with Silverwind. I fought Titanizer right away, praying that I could win with his Silverwind boost and not have to use candies like Dustox did. I think the late game is going to be absolutely brutal for Beautifly because Steven Stone has ancient power users. If you thought Roxanne was bad, he is going to be much worse. Unfortunately, no boost in this fight, but in the second one, I got it right away. Because of this, I'm able to two-shot the Xatu. The Claydol does start using ancient power, and I'm not able to one-shot with Giga Drain, but I know they're going to heal it with a potion, so I can target the Soul Rock with Silverwind. Unfortunately, not enough damage to one-hit, and I get hit by Flamethrower, which is boosted by the sun. But due to Beautifly's Omni Boost, it kind of shrugs off this hit, taking less than half. With Giga Drain, I gain back more health from the Claydol. They're going to heal it again with a Hyper Potion, so I take out the Soul Rock. Lunatone follows, and I can continue the same strategy. Giga Drain the Claydol for health, then use Silverwind on the Lunatone while they heal the Claydol, and since I one-shot, then I can go back to dedicated Giga Drains to finish the Claydol. For Tate and Liza, Beautifly gets a split of 1 hour, 27 minutes, and 29 seconds. It's now 10 minutes and 48 seconds ahead of Dustox. This is the first moment in these playthroughs where one of the two Pokemon has been more than 10 minutes ahead. The largest difference before this was Winona, but she's mostly an outlier. Other than that, the differences have been ranging from 2 minutes and 50 seconds down to only 21 or 23 seconds. In the Space Center, I didn't have issues with Beautifly. Maybe I should have. Both of the Camrupt do have Rock Slide. I pulled through this one without a loss, but then against Archie, I ended up losing. I can't believe this. Archie is one of the worst trainers. The only reason this happened is because I got confused, hit myself, and then Air Cutter got a critical hit, one-shotting. Without the ridiculous crit from Crobat, I'm able to beat Archie on my next attempt. This is how things are supposed to go. This section of the game is supposed to be a gauntlet of easy battles. Space Center with Maxi and Tabitha, Archie, then Juan, followed by Wally. Juan leads with Love Disc. I can just take my time here with Silverwind trying for Omni Boosts, or I can one-shot with Giga Drain. I went for Giga Drain. I have to two-shot the Celio that comes out next, and then three-shot the Kingdra with Psychic, which is really annoying as it sets up with Double Team. But Psychic just keeps hitting, and his Kingdra has used his Chesto Berry, so it goes to sleep with its next rest, and then I three-shot. Giga Drain for Whiscash, that's a one-hit. Crawdont's all that's left, and I've saved Silverwind for it. Plus, Beautifly gets a crit. Wally is bad. I get an Omni Boost early into the fight, and because of that I just crush his entire team. Before heading into the Elite Four, I'm going to grab both of the Waterfall candies to ensure that I can level up as much as possible prior to a trainer like Drake or maybe Wallace. I anticipate that both of them could be a little bit difficult for Beautifly, but I also think that I am going to have to do some blackout training here. If I used all 15 rare candies right now, I would only be level 71, and there's no way that's high enough for Steven Stone. Let's catch up with Dustox throughout the easy section of the game. Thinking about this, it's actually very similar to Pokemon Platinum. In that game, Cyrus in the Destroy Distortion World is incredibly difficult, and then all the trainers that follow him are pretty easy. Emerald mirrors this, with Tate and Liza being the extremely difficult battle that you use your rare candies for, and then the following battles are all simple. The Space Center, Archie, Juan, as well as Wally, all don't cause issues for Dustox. And I attribute this to the fact that I did use my rare candies prior to Tate and Liza, but that has the potential to make things far more difficult for Dustox in the late game, unless it can get through all the remaining trainers without the need for a high level. And that's where Pokemon Emerald differentiates itself from Pokemon Platinum, because the final trainers of Pokemon Platinum really aren't that difficult after Cyrus, but in Emerald they still are. Usually Sydney, Phoebe, and Glacia aren't that bad, but Drake, Wallace, and Steven Stone can be very difficult. If you have an ice move, Drake is easy, but even with super effective damage, Wallace can be a problem, and Steven Stone is always a major threat. I do think that both of these Pokemon have a lot of pain ahead of them. Let's see if Dustox can find success starting the Elite Four at level 68. Initially, it seems like Dustox and Beautifly should both have an advantage against Sydney. That's not really the case here for Dustox, because Silverwind can't one-shot the Mightyena, and then I get hit by Sand Attack, lowering my accuracy. The Shiftry and the Cacturne aren't really issues unless I miss, but then Absol has Pressure, further depleting Silverwind's PP. Dark types resist Shadow Ball, and they're immune to Psychic, so my other two moves are pretty much useless. And because of this, Dustox is not able to win. I lose to the Absol, never even making it to the Cacturne or the Crawdaunt. I'm going to be blacking out during the Elite Four whenever I lose, because I know that Steven Stone's going to require a very high level. It's just a little bit unfortunate that I'm only beating Sydney's first two Pokemon and then losing to the Absol, which does have Rock Slide in combination with Swords Dance. After my third blackout here to the Absol, I decided to switch up my moveset and teach Sludge Bomb in the place of Psychic. This will give me more PP against his Dark types. I think I really should have taught this move earlier. In the next fight against Sydney, I get a second turn Omni Boost, and this allows me to one-shot his remaining 4 Pokemon. Phoebe leads with Duskull, I go for Shadow Ball, and I have to two-shot, taking some damage from Shadow Punch in the process. I thought that Shadow Ball was going to one-shot both of the Bayonet, but it is unable to, unless I roll good damage, because after she heals, I do one-shot with my second attack. The Ace Dusclops has Rock Slide, but Dustox isn't worried about this. It can heal with Moonlight and slowly knock out her Ace using Shadow Ball. I one-shot the second Bayonet and then two-shot the Sableye. But I make it through this fight on red health. It was still very close. I forgot to heal for Glacia, so I guess I'm just gonna lose and take the blackout. We need more levels anyway. I make it back here at level 73, and without an Omni Boost, it doesn't look like I'm gonna pull this off. I could teach Giga Drain in the place of Shadow Ball right now, but then I feel locked into the rest of the Elite Four because I want Shadow Ball to be able to train against Phoebe. So again, not optimal moveset here. I'm just gonna black out and keep grinding. I got lucky against Phoebe the first time I fought her. She is still really scary, and I end up resetting to her a bunch while doing this blackout training. As I start my next league attempt, you'll notice that my Dustox is about to level up to 80. It's here we need to switch back over to Beautifly's playthrough for some context. Beautifly struggled in very similar ways against the Elite Four. It has PP problems against Sydney. For Phoebe, it doesn't get access to Shadow Ball, but it does have access to Psychic, which is pretty good against her team. Of course, it's frailer, but I also didn't use rare candies yet. I can rely on Omni Boosts to get by pretty much every Elite Four member at this point if I want to just reset and lock out, but I continue blacking out over and over until I reach level 65. Candies take Beautifly up to level 80, and then I take on Glacia. This time around, I'm here to win. I easily crush her team and move on to Drake. This one should have been a little bit more difficult. I didn't even get an Omni Boost on the Shelgon, but I two-shot, and it just missed Rock Tomb. I think that might have been critical. Then for Flygon, I'm able to two-shot with Psychic, and Flamethrower only does 1/3. Altaria is a two-shot with Psychic as well, but now we have to go up against Salamence, and it does have Rock Slide. But you know what? It just misses, and because of that, I knock it out in 2 turns with Psychic, move on to the Kingdra, and destroy it with 2 turns of Psychic. So now Beautifly has made it to Wallace at level 81. I'm not gonna lie, I think my confidence was a little bit higher than it should have been at this point in the game. Wallace does not start out well for Beautifly. Silverwind does less than half to the Wailord, and I tank a Blizzard in the process, which also does less than half. I can finish off his lead with Giga Drain and gain back some of my health, but then my Lotic comes in. I used Silverwind hoping for an Omni boost, but I get a critical hit instead, bringing his ace to low red health. He goes for Ice Beam, heals with a Citrus Berry, and I'm around half health when I knock it out. But then Tentacruel survives my hit from Psychic. It uses Ice Beam, but Beautifly survives on yellow health. It's key to note I didn't get a special defense drop here on the Tentacruel, but I roll better damage with Psychic, and it goes down on the next turn. Silverwind has super effective damage on Ludicolo, and it is able to one-shot. Then the Whiscash heals me with Giga Drain. Yes, that is the correct sentence. And finally, Gyarados comes out. I don't care about Intimidate. I just two-shot with Psychic and beat Wallace. I think that could have gone a lot worse, but I'll take the win. Now, we still have not got the context that we need for the Dustox playthrough. We need to continue just a little bit longer. I explore the Safari Zone, grabbing myself a rare candy with Beautifly, and then I head to face Steven Stone. Beautifly is level 83. My moveset is Hidden Power Fire, Attract, Silverwind, and Morning Sun. I'm holding the leftovers. His first Pokemon is Skarmory, a Steel Flying type. I go for Attract to hopefully prevent it from hitting with Aerial Ace, and when it does, Beautifly loses half of its health. Okay, so this Skarmory looks like it's going to be more of a problem than I was anticipating. Also, if I use Silverwind to try to Omni Boost here, I am never going to knock out his lead. It does completely pathetic damage. And if I don't have Substitute, then he can hit me with Toxic, so this is a loss for Beautifly. I did keep playing just to test out how much damage Hidden Power Fire was doing, and honestly a lot more than I was expecting. I should be able to two-shot the Skarmory when it's at full health. I attempted getting Silverwind boosts on the Skarmory before moving on, but I just depleted all of the Bug-type move before I got to the Claydol. This isn't gonna work. Also, Poison is so bad that I need a way to deal with it. So I put Rest in the place of Morning Sun as my healing move. Beautifly can two-shot the Claydol, and it's also going to be able to two-shot the Cradily without Omni boosts. The issue now is that his first rock type has ancient power and it can just finish Beautifly. But my plan is starting to come together. Hidden power 2 times on the Skarmory after using Attract to knock it out. Then hope for Omni boosts on the Claydol as well as the Cradily because I'm going to use Silverwind 4 times in a row. Another problem is that the Claydol also has ancient power, so if it doesn't set up with one of its screens and gets a critical hit, it one-shots Beautifly. In the next fight, I finally got an Omni boost and Claydol set up with Reflect. I went for Silverwind again, and despite Reflect, because of the boost on the previous turn, I'm able to two-shot. But now I have to 3-shot the Cradily, and while I can survive a hit from Ancient Power, I'm not going to survive multiple, so I need to try for Attract, but it didn't work. I kept trying, and I kept losing. Also, don't heal with Rest on the Skarmory. This is a terrible idea. I just get caught in a healing loop with the Skarmory attacking with Aerial Ace and eventually lose, wasting time. I think if the Skarmory attacks, I need to reset right away because I've taken too much damage by that point. I continued playing this, and I had so many resets. My fault counter right now is at 72. However, I don't feel closer to beating Steven Stone. Really, I'm waiting for multiple Omni boosts on the Claydol. Okay, there's one, that's good. I knock it out. Unfortunately, I don't get a second one. Then I use Attract right away on the Cradily, knowing that it has ancient power. I can now two-shot using Silverwind. I had my fingers crossed. I was hoping for an Omni boost, but I don't get it. Next, Steven sends in Armaldo, another rock type with ancient power. I use Attract to prevent it from attacking, then Silverwind, which is going to 3-shot. But when Beautifly has one Omni boost and it's near full health, when Armaldo hits with ancient power, it one-shots without a critical hit. So while Beautifly is stuck on Steven Stone, let's go back and reflect on what I'm doing with the Dustox. I had to use a bunch of rare candies before Tate and Liza, and so I just kept training on the Elite Four, blacking out over and over and over again. It looks ridiculous, but what I'm doing here is trying to get a ridiculously high level for Steven Stone so that I'm not going to suffer against him. The trainer who was causing most problems during the Elite Four was Drake. You can see here, I'm blacking out to him at level 87. I'm also using Struggle. This is because I don't want to use my PP restoring items because I'm saving them for the final league run that I do right at the end of all of this training. Once I reach level 90, I use my final 4 rare candies to go up to level 94. I'll definitely be fine against Drake now. I can just reset until I get get an Omni Boost on the first Pokemon Shelgon, but I didn't even need to do that. I'm able to get an Omni Boost on the Flygon instead, which I'm two-shotting using Silverwind, and from there the remainder of the fight is pretty straightforward. The same can be said for Wallace. I just attack and I beat everything here because I'm so ridiculously over-leveled. And I did this just so that I could beat Steven Stone fairly easily at the end of the game. Here's the thing though, Dustox still suffers against Steven Stone. My moveset is Rest, Hidden Power Fire, Silverwind, and Substitute. I'm using the leftovers just like with Beautifly. The only difference here is that Dustox is a lot better defensively against Steven Stone's Pokemon. It has worse damage ranges, but it's not taking such critical damage every time one of his rock types uses Ancient Power. I lose the first fight because I was confused by the Cradily, but if this doesn't happen, it gives me a lot of turns to set up with Silverwind. 2 shots aren't enough to knock it out, so Steven Stone is healing it with a full restore. Unfortunately, no Omni Boosts, and I lose again. As I continued battling him, I realized that I do sometimes have the damage rolls I need to 2-shot the Cradily, but then I can just continue Silverwinding the Claydol as well as the Armaldo. The issue here is that I just barely don't have enough damage without an Omni Boost to 3-shot, and because of that Steven Stone heals, and then I just get caught in a rest loop, constantly stalling out the Armaldo, hoping that it runs out of good moves like Ancient Power and Aerial Ace. This took so long, and then Steven Stone used one more full restore. I just decided to reset here. I'm not gonna win. So you might hate it, but the answer for this fight, like all of the other difficult battles in these playthroughs, is just getting an Omni Boost with Silverwind. Even when I over-leveled with Dustox and I'm fighting Steven Stone near the maximum level, I have to rely on the 10% chance. In this case, I get it on Claydol on turn 1, and then I knock it out, getting a second Omni Boost. This is what always happens. When you want one Omni Boost, you can't get it, and then when you get one, you get like 2 or 3 more during the course of the fight. In this case, I only get 2, but that's enough. I knock out the Claydol, move onto Armaldo, which I can 2-shot now with Silverwind. Then I have Hidden Power Fire to 1-shot the Metagross and to 2-shot the Aggron. In my first playthrough with Dustox, I get a time of 2 hours, 45 minutes, and 47 seconds. With 13 resets, 42 blackouts for a total of 55 faults. The weak bug poison type finished the game at level 95 with a game time of 10 hours and 2 minutes. Now, I complained a lot about Dustox, but things are going worse for Beautifly finally at the end of the game. I'm back to grinding on the Elite Four for a higher level so that I can actually beat Steven Stone. Looking at the splits from these playthroughs, Beautifly beat Wallace 36 minutes and 52 seconds faster. But now it has given up all of that time lead because I tried to beat Steven Stone with luck from Silverwind, which is how I won with Dustox, but for Beautifly, because of its typing, it wasn't able to do this. I trained to level 93, and then I go back to Steven Stone. The reason I wanted this level is so that I'll be 2-shotting the Claydol as well as the Cradily when using Silverwind. If I can knock them out more quickly, then I can avoid more Ancient Powers and hopefully get Omni Boosts along the way. But I just can't. I cannot believe the number of fights that I tried without getting an Omni Boost. There was a point where I thought my run would have a total of 100 faults before I got a single Omni Boost at level 93. Luckily, I was wrong. I survive an Ancient Power from the Claydol, which is something that can happen now even if it gets a critical hit because I'm level 93. I knock it out, then on the Cradily, I go for Attract because I have to, and after a full restore, I 3-shot using Silverwind, grabbing an Omni Boost on the final hit. Still, I'm not in a great position with Beautifly. I have to use Attract on the Armaldo, but then my next attack with Silverwind gets a second Omni Boost. This is the scenario I was talking about. Now that I have +2 in all my stats, I can knock out the Armaldo on the next turn and then 1-shot both the Aggron and the Metagross. Beautifly finishes its first playthrough with a time of 2 hours, 55 minutes, and 14 seconds, with 51 resets, 46 blackouts at level 93 with a game time of 9 hours and 17 minutes. Looking at all of the splits through these playthroughs, it's a sandwich. Dustox was better against Roxanne and Brawly, and it was better against Steven Stone. The massive advantage that Beautifly was able to earn for itself during the mid and late game didn't matter when Steven Stone flattened it with rocks. I looped in Ike the Killer to help me with the optimization process for these two Pokemon, and I'm really glad I did. I made a lot of mistakes in my first playthrough, which some of you are probably already aware of. The first mistake I made was assigning Beautifly the wrong nature. Modest is not correct for this playthrough. Instead, I should be using Rash, increasing my special attack and lowering my special defense. I want to preserve my physical attack for when I'm using moves like Silverwind. Then I won't need to overlevel as much to two-shot Steven Stone's Pokemon with it in the late game. The right strategy for Roxanne is blacking out until you beat her. The surprising thing is that Beautifly can win against her at a much lower level if it gets good luck, and I did in this playthrough, defeating Roxanne in only 13 minutes and 12 seconds. That is 6 minutes faster than my first playthrough. As soon as I get Thief from the museum, I'm going to backtrack to the earliest portions of the game and yoink all the nuggets off of the rich trainers. The reason I'm doing this is because it is possible to get 7,000 Pokédollars by picking up high-priced items and selling these nuggets before I face Watson. I'm also going to fight pretty much every trainer in this section of the game to level up to 34 anyway, so that I have Silverwind in combination with Psychic. This fight is still kind of random and Beautifly can lose. I end up taking 2 resets in this playthrough, but eventually I'm going to win. I'm using Silverwind for his first 2 Pokemon, chancing Omni Boosts, and I could get by his final Pokemon even without them, because Psychic is doing good damage. In this playthrough I did get an Omni Boost and then defeat Watson, and I end up 8 seconds behind my previous split here, which is unfortunate because I've given up the early game advantage that I had at Roxanne. Still, there are a lot of upcoming time saves for Beautifly. Flannery is not really one of them because I do blackout training here like I did previously. I mentioned using the Macho Brace here for increased EV yields, but that doesn't end up being possible because I had to sell it for enough money to purchase Psychic prior to Watson. I was a little bit sloppy and I could have kept the Macho Brace because I did fight some trainers after buying Psychic, but I decided to not go back and optimize for these extra EVs even though they would be nice to have. With Flannery defeated, I am now 1 minute and 39 seconds behind my former playthrough, but last time I did lose to Norman. This time I don't because I get an Omni Boost on the Spinda and I defeat him on my first attempt. This puts me now 4 seconds ahead of my previous time. Prior to Winona, I went to the department store and I purchased myself 3 calcium and 4 iron. I wanted to improve my defense just a little bit against the late game ancient powers. Now the biggest mistake I made in my previous 2 runs with these bugs is just not teaching Substitute. This is the best move in Generation 3 for a reason, and I shouldn't have held on to Morning Sun or Moonlight. While it is always nice to have recovery in a solo challenge, having access to Substitute is just better. With Beautifly, I made one more mistake here against Winona. Because Beautifly learns Giga Drain through level up, I can always reteach this move with the move Reminder. If I had thought about that, I would have run Hidden Power Fire for this fight so that I would have better damage against her Skarmory late into the battle. Without it, I unfortunately took 2 resets against her until I finally won. And at this point in the game, it looks like I'm very behind by 3 minutes and 53 seconds, but do remember last time I fought Winona without going to Lily Cove City, so this isn't a good comparison. Remember how Beautifly struggled against Maxie in the previous battle? That's not going to happen this time around because I have Substitute to block 1 turn of Rock Slide. Also, I get very lucky triggering 2 Omni Boosts against the Mighty Yenna, and then I one-shot the Camerupt with Psychic. I could not have asked for a better fight here. Now I'm 1 minute and 41 seconds ahead. Prior to Tate and Liza, I used 13 rare candies, bringing Beautifly up to level 66. Yes, I'm going to finish this run at a lower level. Then Silverwind one-shots Claydol, one-shots Solrock, one-shots Lunatone, and one-shots the final Xatu with an Omni Boost. I really like using the rare candies prior to Tate and Liza because of how much it smooths out the next section of the game, as I mentioned before. Plus, it's going to make my blackout training against the Elite Four faster. Without Omni Boosts, I end up beating Glacia at an earlier time, 1 hour 43 minutes and 7 seconds, which is 12 minutes and 25 seconds faster than my previous run. This is the benefit of using the rare candies earlier into the playthrough. Drake is still too difficult for Beautifly to beat, but that's okay, I still need to do some blackout training. My goal here is to get to around level 76 if possible. And this will work out for me because when I make it to Drake's chamber, I'm level 75 halfway through the experience bar. Now all I need to do is get an Omni Boost against the Shelgon. Once that happens, I sweep his team with Psychic and move on to Wallace. Prior to this battle, I used 2 rare candies going up to level 78, and then with an Omni Boost, I crush his team on my first attempt. This is the strategy in the late game, by the way, just get a boost, win, and I'll be faster than the previous playthrough. In this case, by 5 minutes and 21 seconds. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat things here with Beautifly. Steven Stone is brutal. There's no way around that. The strategy that I found to be best against Steven Stone was attract turn 1 on Skarmory to prevent it from going from things like Aerial Ace, then on turn 2 use Substitute. If it goes for Toxic on turn 1, it has a chance to miss, so I don't think blocking its first turn with Substitute is better, because then it can go for Aerial Ace and just break your Substitute right away, in which case it continues spamming Aerial Ace because it's doing a lot of damage and then you lose. After setting up the substitute doll, I need to keep it around for the remainder of the fight. The strategy here should be 2 turns of Hidden Power Fire to knock out the Skarmory, but I went for 1 Silverwind, got an Omni Boost, and then my follow-up Hidden Power Fire knocks it out. Then on Claydol, I need to Omni Boost, hopefully on turn 1, and 2-shot KO. If I can pull that off, then I make it into the truly luck-based portion of the fight. I need to use Attract on turn 1 against Cradily, Armaldo, and Aggron. I will 2-shot the Cradily with Silverwind, this is at level 80, and I will 3-shot the Armaldo with Silverwind. I'm hoping that I can get additional Omni Boosts along this path, keeping my substitute in place for the Metagross, because with Hidden Power Fire I am not able to 1-shot. I have to 2-shot, with +2. Still, eventually I pull this strategy off, and while it does require way more luck, it is still so much faster than my previous strategy. And over-leveling for Beautifly doesn't really make the fight more consistent. You still just have to rely on Omni Boosts, so why would I sacrifice 54 minutes and 35 seconds in order to fight him at a higher level? It just makes no sense. And that is a massive difference in first playthrough time and second playthrough time. Although I will say I'm quite sad. Beautifly finished the game with a time of 2 hours and 39 seconds. Just barely not getting a sub 2 hour time. It had 10 resets, 15 blackouts. It finished the game at level 80 with a game time of 7 hours and 24 minutes. Just like with Beautifly, Dustox is also going to run a different nature for the second playthrough. Instead of boosting special attack, thinking that Psychic and Psybeam and Confusion are my go-to moves, I am instead going to boost physical attack, knowing that in the later stages of the game I'm going to be relying on Silverwind, Shadow Ball, and Sludge Bomb, all which deal physical damage because of their typing in Generation 3. I didn't get as much luck with Dustox against Roxanne this time around. Because of that, I finished with a split of 19 minutes and 12 seconds, which is 2 minutes and 22 seconds slower than my first attempt. But this is still serviceable. After all, for Dustox, just like with Beautifly, it's going to gain its major time advantages in the later stages of the run. Jumping ahead to Watson, I played this section of the game the same as with Beautifly, yoinking nuggets and buying Psychic as well as leveling to 34 for Silverwind. In this case though, I get lucky. I get an Omni Boost initially, so I don't have any resets to Watson. That kind of makes up for the time that Dustox lost against Roxanne when Beautifly got a really lucky early game split. Dustox is the one that gets lucky here against the electric type specialist. Although it wasn't that lucky, look at my moveset. Dustox can actually run something slightly different in this next section of the game. Psychic, Silverwind, Light Screen, and Moonlight. Thank you, Ike the Killer, for cluing me into the fact that Light Screen is actually really helpful against Flannery. The key here is timing out Light Screen, Moonlight, and Sunny Day, so that she's not going to have a boost with Overheat from Camerupt or Torkoal. While I'm trying to buy time to line up all of these things, I can use Silverwind as well for potential Omni boosts. I reset 3 times to Flannery, trying to go as fast as possible without the blackouts, but still, I'm able to come out of this split only 47 seconds behind my previous time. On my way to Petalburg City to face Norman, I visit the move reminder in Fall Arbor Town and teach Protect in the place of Light Screen. This move, in combination with Moonlight, is essentially a guaranteed win against slacking, with one exception: PP problems. If I'm not holding a Lepa Berry, then I'm going to run out of Psychic PP before knocking the slacking out. So I did take 1 reset here because I forgot to hold the berry before the fight, but the second time around I remember the item, and because of it I don't have PP problems. Next, I teach Sludge Bomb over Reflect. Psychic right now is useful against Camerupt in the next section of the game. Shadow Ball is going to be helpful against Tate and Liza and then Phoebe, and Giga Drain is good against Glacia and Wallace. Because of the way all of this lines up, there's a very clear progression to what I want to do with that move slot. Keep Psychic for now, upgrade to Shadow Ball, and then eventually learn Giga Drain. There are some downsides to doing this. Having Giga Drain earlier for Tate and Liza can be a little bit helpful. It's also nice to have for Juan, but I don't really need to worry about him since I am going to be using rare candies right in front of Tate and Liza, just like with Beautifly. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself though, because for Dustox I run a different set against Winona. Sludge Bomb, Silverwind, Psychic, and Hidden Power Fire. This way I have a move to deal with the Skarmory quickly. I upgrade Hidden Power Fire to Substitute prior to fighting Maxie in the volcano, and I could have taught Shadow Ball for Tate and Liza, but I don't need it. Silverwind is more than enough here. It's able to knock out their Pokemon fairly quickly, and the Claydol isn't doing enough damage now that I've used rare candies. This time around, Dustox is 8 minutes and 51 seconds ahead of its previous time when it defeats Wally, but the major time saves are still to come. Elite Four grinding with Dustox is actually pretty efficient. Substitute for Mighty Yenna, then Silverwind for Omni boosts. It has 4 times damage against Shiftry and Cacturn, and I can use Sludge Bomb against them as well if I want to preserve PP. I have Shadow Ball for Phoebe in combination with Substitute, so this battle's easy, and Glacia is typically where I start blacking out. I am going to leverage the fact that Dustox is more defensive for this playthrough to give it a small advantage in the later stages of the game. I'm going to be fighting Stevenstone 2 levels lower than I was with Beautifly. So when I arrive at Glacia around level 73 or 74, I can teach Giga Drain in the place of Shadow Ball and then defeat her for the first time. Dustox now is faster than its previous time by 34 minutes and 12 seconds. Omni Boost on Drake. This is the way to win. Also a Citrus Berry just so I can gain back a little bit more health from his attacks. The same is true for Wallace. I just want to crush him with Omni Boosts, and I get 2 right away on the Whale Lord, so this ends up being a really easy win. Unfortunately for Dustox, it's going into Stevenstone slightly slower than I was with Beautifly, so today it's not going to be the victor. I did think that I was going to beat Stevenstone with less resets when compared with Beautifly, but that also doesn't end up being the case. Overall, I do think the Dustox is the more reliable Pokemon here against Stevenstone. That just isn't reflected in today's results. The annoying thing is my damage ranges. I'm just not able to 2-shot the Pokemon that I was with Beautifly, instead having to 3-hit, giving him more chances to roll for Ancient Powers for damage to break my Substitute. Another big disadvantage for Dustox here is that it has to 3-shot the Skarmory at the beginning of the fight. In order to start getting 2 shots on the Skarmory, I would need to be level 85, which is 7 more levels of training, and that just isn't worth it. Even if I reset here 7 more times, I will be faster. And we get to see that in this playthrough. I lose to Stevenstone a total of 8 times, but eventually I stack up 2 Omni Boosts and then Dustox wins. It comes out of this second playthrough 34 minutes and 38 seconds faster than the first one. It finished the game with a time of 2 hours, 11 minutes and 9 seconds with 13 resets, 23 blackouts at level 79 with a game time of 7 hours and 44 minutes. These are the run summaries for the 2 playthroughs that I just did. Thank you, Ike the Killer, for helping me with these, and for all of you watching, let me know if you can think of anything better for these 2 bugs. Although if you want to have a fun time, I don't really suggest playing these 2, they're not great. If we look at the timeline graphs for the follow-up playthroughs, we can see that Beautifly was just ahead of Dustox the entire time. If we look at game time by trainer, then you can see that Beautifly was ahead for most of the playthrough, and it seems like a lot of its advantage was built at Roxanne at the beginning of the game. Maybe if I got a less lucky Roxanne split, Dustox might actually get a better game time, but I'm not sure of that, since these 2 went back and forth throughout the mid-game, and then coming out of that, Beautifly was consistently ahead throughout the late game. For tier list placement, in its first run, Dustox was able to get a better time than Beautifly, and it earns itself a placement in the E tier. Beautifly isn't that much slower though, only being 2 spots behind it in the exact same tier. But this list is getting pretty stale because I've improved a lot since I started this series, so let's move on to the follow-up attempt tier list. This one is much more accurate. Winning the overall challenge, Beautifly only gets itself a placement in the Bruno tier, ahead of Latios. It does have the top spot here, which is nice, but it's still pretty bad. It's also right behind another bug flying type, Ninjask, which got into the Surge tier. And Beautifly could get a result that's close to Ninjask's. Only about 2.5 minutes separate these Pokemon, and Ninjask did have a higher game time by 3 minutes. Dustox, on the other hand, does not beat Latios, but it does take the 3rd place overall in the Bruno tier. Now, let's talk about bug types in general in Generation 3. I have now played 5 in total, and if we filter the tier list for only the bugs, they are exclusively in the Surge and Bruno tier. My favorite typing is not doing so well in Emerald. Maybe if I play some other bugs like Masquerain, Illumise, and Volbeat, maybe they'll perform better. And we're gonna find out because later in the year, I intend to do all of those runs. We are in Halloween week right now on the channel, so expect a video from me every day, culminating on Halloween day with a very big yellow version video. If you support me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships, thank you so much, it means the world to me. Now, if you've made it this far, you're incredible. I'll see you tomorrow.